Okay, let's start. So, just give me 1 second. Okay, great. So, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining in. We are in the session on Career Spotlight, 21st Century Skills in the VUCA world. VUCA, of course, here refers to volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And in this complex and ambiguous world, there are some skills that stand out for anybody entering the future workforce. There are some skills that become necessary to actually even thrive in the future workforce. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, very quickly introducing our faculty for today. We have Professor Kritika Bhattacharjee, who's the HOD and a faculty at Ashoka University. She's a writer. She's also a theatre maker. She's been ex-faculty at at Oxford University and at Edinburgh University. She's trained in history at Delhi University and Oxford University as well. And she's done her PhD in religious studies from University of Edinburgh. Kritika Bhattacharjee will be taking the course on critical thinking for the everyday in the Horizons Achievers program, 2025, scheduled in summer. And we also have Professor Brainerd Prince with us today. Welcome, Professor. He's a faculty at Plaksha University. He is an ex-research tutor at OCMS Oxford University as well. He's author of a very, very special book called Miyak Stapa. And he's also a PhD in religious studies from OCMS Oxford. He will be taking a very, very special course for us in the Horizons Achievers program 2025. And the course is named Research Writing from Inquiry to Impact. So a very warm welcome to you, professors, and thanks so much for joining in today. We have two attendees today, Itu and Pooja. I hope you are able to hear us. I hope you are able to unmute yourself and talk.
Hello, are you referring to us, Pooja Kothari?
Yes, hi Pooja, you can hear us, right?
Yes, yes.
Hi, good morning.
So I'd request our professors to quickly say hi to our participants today, and we can take our chat today forward.
Hello, hi Pooja, hi Itu. Glad you could come on a Sunday afternoon. Look forward to a good chat.
Oh, thanks so much. So we will get into the next segment of our session today very quickly, which is a fireside chat with our special professors today. This chat will actually help you get an insight into the courses that we're doing and also understand the importance of research writing and critical thinking as skills for students. And from there, we'll open it up for Q&A. So, professors, how we'll do this, I'll call out your name and I'll be asking questions and we can take that forward. So I think, Professor Kritika, my first question goes to you. And I think I'm always inspired by people who, specialize in a certain field while your forte is writing. I think I would like to understand, how did you take the decision of actually continuously developing your skill of critical thinking and actually even passing on that knowledge to other students? What was your motivation for it?
Thanks for the question. I mean, I'm not sure that I have. In that sense, that I'm not sure that you need to explicitly decide that you want to get better at critical thinking. And actually, the sad part is that a lot of the time when you really need to think critically, you don't actually do it. But I think what motivated me to teach it is the fact that, when you are teaching something like history, which is what I was trained in, or religious studies, which is also what I was trained in, then it seems like there's a specific, something specific that you have to, that contains where you're supposed to be looking, or the kinds of questions you should be asking. If you're a historian past a point, you have to ask the question of, has this happened before? What happened then? Or, what is this account saying, or what can explain the way in which this account is written, things like that. If you're studying religious studies, that, I mean, even if you can say that, okay, religion, it could be many things, and even, people who really love iPhones and who really buy into the Apple brand, that's a religion. You can make such arguments, and it has been done. Even so, there's a certain focus that you're meant to have when you study things like that. But if somebody says you want to study critical thinking, that's amazing, because anything in the world can be a worthy object for critical thinking. And in fact, if we thought as carefully about the chairs on which we sit, the ways in which our houses are designed to let in light or not let in light, we thought as carefully about every detail of, when we walk from our home to school, what we're actually seeing, what we're not seeing, our minds would explode because we would simply not ever be able to do it. But B, our minds would expand because something is to be gained when you treat everything in the world with that dignity. I think that's why teaching critical thinking is so fun, because nobody can come and tell you that's not a worthy thing to study. I can bring, a roll of toilet paper into my classroom and say, let's study this. And in that moment, everybody has to just go, yes, there is something about toilet paper, the way it's manufactured, whatever, the different kind of cultures that this is useful to think about. So that's why it's so fun, because you never really run out of things to talk and think about. And there is that hope or the possibility that one day, 20 years later, in a completely different setting, something that you thought about 30 years ago, 20 years ago in some classroom will come in handy. It's not a promise, because it's not a practical tool. It's not like, if you tomorrow, I will teach you a course and you will learn how to think critically, and then for the rest of your life you will think critically. Unfortunately, it just doesn't work like that, even if I wanted it to be that way. But the idea is that if you keep your brain in shape and train yourself to do some things again and again and again and again, eventually at some point in your life, when you really need that skill, when you are really facing uncertainty or ambiguity, you will be able to remember what it is about thinking that can help navigate situations like that. That's why it's exciting to teach, even if I'm not all that good at it myself at all the times that I need to be.
So thank you, Professor. I think that really highlights the importance of it as a skill. And that's something that can't be, I wouldn't call it that if you do, as you rightly pointed out, that it is something that has to be practiced continuously for anybody to.
Yeah, I think I would resist any temptation to call it a tool. It's not a technique. It's not these things. It's a habit. If anything else, it's a habit.
And you've actually described it as a habit so beautifully that, I actually want to ask you the importance of this for high schoolers. There are high schoolers who will be entering the future workforce, let's say 5 years or 6 years or 7 years later. And things will be different. Today, the session is about being in the VUCA world. So the world will be very different when they enter as well. So, how do you think, how important is it for a high schooler to actually develop this as a habit? Or, how can they even think about their careers if they are actually specifically interested in building this skill and practicing this skill on the go?
A world that's really uncertain. I mean, I was reading a book where in the 1960s, somebody saying, isn't it sad that human beings have lost connection from each other? Somebody in the 1850s and 1860s is writing, we are living at a time of ambiguity like no other time has ever achieved. Every age thinks that they are uniquely, facing the problem of uncertainty or ambiguity. And I don't know that that's true. I mean, I'm not a historian anymore, and I think it would take a historian to actually answer that question decisively. But I don't think there's anything special about high schoolers and the challenges they're facing today, or rather, I don't want to assume that there is something uniquely special about high schoolers today. They are going to step into an complex, uncertain, ambiguous world like their parents did, like their elder siblings did, like their grandparents did. And I think that with all of these things, given the fact that the marketplace does shift and the things that you think you're studying might not be the things that you actually work on, might not be the thing that your employer wants. Maybe your employer also doesn't know what on earth they want. So I think the key is why something like being able to just think for yourself, to take a step back and ask yourself, what does this require? If I have been asked to, whether it is write an assignment or in my future hypothetical workplace, produce a report, the idea that there are lots of things you will never be told. And the point of it is that everything will not be made explicit to you. When you write a question paper, it is made explicit. Write 4 answers why X, and then you get the bullet points. But when somebody comes and says, write, I want a project report on blah, or I want 3,000 words on how you felt when you saw this film, nobody is going to tell you what to say. And at that point, the more practice you had in trying to clean your mind, like keep a clean house here, figure out what are 7 things I could say. Of these 7, can I leave 5 of these behind and then just pick one thing that I really want to talk about? Why is this a useful thing to talk about? Why is it useful to draw focus onto it? And this kind of basic almost disobedience, which I think critical thinking has to have, that you have been told to write an essay about this, or you've been told eventually by your future employer to write about X, but you're never actually being asked to write about X fully. You're always being asked to do something else. And that ability to find the tiny X within that larger X, focus on it, bring something of yourself, bring something of value, have a sense of what you can leave behind, like what can be omitted, what can be chosen, what can be justified. I think if you learn to do this, then that to me is a kind of future proofing, if you can use that term. Because the ways in which we are training people to say write might be obsolete in like 20 years. That doesn't mean you shouldn't learn how to write. You should, but only because, and I'm sure Professor Prince will speak to this, but you should learn to write because learning to write is learning to think. They are the same thing. You're just trying to get words on the page. So again, I think the minute you see it as something fundamental, I'm using these courses to discipline my mind and make it do stuff that in a controlled way, pointing it towards some end. That's something that whether you're in the workforce or whether you choose to not work at all and be a creative person and not work for some other company or start your own business, there's something that is to be said about just learning how to keep a clean house, that hopefully is useful. I know it sounds a bit vague, so I'm happy to be pressed for more details, Aditi, and anybody listening, but I know it's a bit general.
No, and I think this is super helpful, right? Because it also highlights that it is not career specific. It doesn't matter what career you go into. It doesn't matter whether you're working under an employer or you're starting your own business or you're doing something in the creative field. It is a skill that will be applicable everywhere. It is a habit that you form for anything that you do. And I think what's very interesting is that, as you highlighted, that actually your employer might not know what they want out of you. The employer also might not know the right decision or the right way to do it, and they want you to figure it out. And I think that really highlights the crux of the skill of critical thinking. So thanks so much, Professor Kritika, for really putting it so beautiful. And moving to you, Professor Bernard, I think I want to understand that, because you chose research, right, as one of your specializations. And people can, of course, do research and academic research, especially in so many different fields, and they do it as professors, they do it as uh, people working in for think tanks. But I think what I want to understand is that what was your motivation to actually just impart this skill of research to students? What was your motivation to go ahead and specialize in it?
Thank you, Aditi, for the lovely introduction and for setting this platform up. And just before I answer your question, I was just listening keenly to what Professor Bhattacharjee was saying, and I kind of resonated with everything. And most of what she actually said about thinking could actually apply for research as well. There's a huge overlap between critical thinking and research. So I think if you ask me what does it even mean? It's one of those skills and again habits, I think that's a beautiful word, which is innately human. I think that's what I want to say. It makes us more fully human when we are able to, not just exercise our muscles in our body, but are also able to use our minds. We are able to use our thought processes, our cognitive processes to to its fullest. Now, the word research is very exciting. It's a Latin word research from two parts, and re means again and against, but search, that's at the heart of research. The 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 inquisitiveness, the curiosity, the ability to ask questions, to question all presuppositions. And particularly in our Indian context, we are given how we should live. We are told what is the right thing to do. We are constantly taught. And in some sense, that's why I find critical thinking and research so much together, because if you're constantly just doing what you're told, it's kind of bypassing our thinking abilities, our questioning, our curiosities. And I think today we live in a world, I mean, you nicely coined the VUCA word to describe it, but we live really in a world, and I come from a tech university where AI has taken the world by storm, and there's so much of change, so much of quick, rapid change. There's really nothing new under the sun, as Professor Bhattacharjee said. Historically, if you go to the 17th century, I mean, I love a beautiful movie called Midnight at Paris. And this guy in, I think, the early 21st century is romanticizing the 1920s. But then he meets a character in 1920s who's romanticizing the 1890s. So I think you could keep going back because some of the perennial questions are the same. However, there is a rapid explosion of information in our world today, and that is visible because of the kinds. Everyone is an author, everyone is putting stuff on social media, everyone is able to express and articulate themselves. So in the midst of all that, if I could use the word noise, in the midst of all that, how do you know where you can actually find the right signals? So asking the right questions, being curious about things that matter, and pursuing a line of inquiry. For me, that's what research is. So if that's the search, and all of us probably have some parts of it, but because today's world again works with 30-second attention span, we are not able to develop a deep habit of pursuing a line of inquiry and taking it to its logical conclusion. So for me, research would primarily be about learning that habit, that skill of pursuing a line of questioning and accessing the right material, making those choices, making those, gathering evidences and putting things together. The word re is very interesting because it not just means again. Again means that the question you're asking and pursuing, you're not the first person. Others have done it in the past. So you got to read. You got to read what others have said about it. So we use the language of literature review. But what that really means is, can I understand what others have said so that I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel? I'm trying to understand what others have said till where they have said. But re also means against. So what is it that they have said that I don't agree with? What is it that they have found which has limitations? How do I actually am able to think beyond what has been taught so far in a particular area or field? So in that sense, research, this ordinary curiosity that today we have and we practice in our everyday, when you want to buy a phone, you're researching, you want to, buy a new pair of shoes, you're researching, you're doing all that. But how do you do it in a systematic manner? How do you do it in a sense which can be made to seem more rigorous? So in that sense, I would say research is something exciting. It's a fantastic habit to have. It's a habit rather than just a skill, because you could use that for everything in life. everything. And I think it just makes our life much more richer when we are able to have that lens of research.
Oh, and I think again you have put it so nicely to actually intertwine critical thinking and research writing, how there are overlaps between the two, how we're talking about where we've moved beyond the fact that critical thinking and research writing are skills. We've moved beyond that and call them habits today, to say that if you form this as a habit, continuously practice this in your day-to-day work, in your day-to-day school work, in your day-to-day work life, then how that can actually enhance the outcome that you achieve in whatever you're trying to do. And I think one of the questions I also have for you is, Professor Brainerd, is that let's say if there's a high schooler who loves research, as a thing, as a process also, like if a high schooler loves research as a process and doing that, on a daily basis, then what kind of careers is something they can also look at to build, to sort of get into, or to build further, so that they can, sort of keep doing that in their careers as well. What do you think? What
Right.
would be some specific careers for such a high schooler?
Right. I think first of all, when you're in high school, your next step in life is university, hopefully, and it's to get into a educational institution. You want to start looking for an institution that gives a rich place for something like research and thinking. And I would just say it personally. You want a climate of intellectual activity. You want to be part of a community where people are thinking, debating, discussing, because that's where you're really going to develop yourself, ourselves as humans, as students, and not just as students, as people who can get to have a voice, have an informed voice, if I could say so. So I think that's the first step, I would say. When you're looking for colleges, universities, look to find what sort of an intellectual climate do they offer, what sort of professors, what sort of courses they offer. Do they focus and do they give emphasis on thinking, on research? Do they give you opportunities to explore? Do they give you opportunities to have different experiences and write about them? So I think these are some things I would say for your immediate next step. But if you're looking at careers beyond the university, today, I mean, largely, your placement cells would tell you you could either be an entrepreneur, you could be an employee in the industry, or you could pursue higher education. And often the word research is just confined to higher education. It says that, okay, you want to go do a master's, you'll do a thesis, you'll do a dissertation, then you can do a PhD if you'd like. And research is meant for those. And if you want to be an employee, or particularly if you want to be an entrepreneur, you really don't need to learn research. And often I would say this is a misconception. I teach in a tech university where most of them are not going for higher education per se. They're all either going to be entrepreneurs with startups, or they're going to join the industry. But we have found that in any field, it doesn't matter. Research is such a fundamental habit of the mind that you are required to access information, process information, analyze it. You're required to sieve through the noise and collect the right signals, as it were, meaningful data, if I could use that term. You are required to put things together in a manner that you're able to get new insights that are in the language of what has been done before, and yet have a novelty that is unique to who you are. And that is not just going to happen on the side. You're not going to just pick it up. It's something like swimming. It's an art and a science you have to learn, you got to practice. And perhaps that's what this course might offer you in the summer, to just have that experience of experiencing every stage in the process of research. So I think once you have become a good researcher, it doesn't matter what you want to research. You could research anything under the sun. You can be confident that when you take decisions, whether it's for employment, whether in employment, whether it's life decisions, if you have done the process of research, hopefully, again, with all the conditions that life has to offer us, with all the limitations and constraints, from your point of view, you could say, I did my very best because I thoroughly did what was required as good practice. So I think when I think of having a research mindset, a way of life, a way of viewing the world, a way of engaging with information, whether we get it empirically through our senses or we get it from books, but it's a posture to life. And if you have that, I think we would live richer lives, more meaningful lives according to the parameters we set up. And in career, today, any career that you choose, any job you choose, I think research is a good skill set in that sense, to have in order to perform well and to express yourself well.
Sure. And I think thank you, Professor, for one talking so passionately about research and putting so many dimensions to it, from skill to habit to posture, everything. I think it really defines it very well. And I think it is also breaking the convention that research is not just academic. Sometimes I think academic research limits the perception that goes with it. And how research is actually going beyond that and breaking pathways in startups, in think tanks, in companies as well, and in a lot of consulting companies as well. And I think now I'll move into the courses that we're offering, and let our audience know about that a little bit. So I think moving on to you, Professor Kritika, if you could, number one, tell me what is exciting you the most to teach this course on critical thinking for the everyday in the Horizons Achievers program in summer. And also, if you could very briefly define the core outcome that the students will also achieve from the course, that students should look forward to achieving from the course.
Thanks for the question. What excites me most is a particular slideshow, an exercise that I had shared with students the last time I had taught this. In that form of the course, technology was only one module in the 3-person course, whereas for this one, technology is the main module. And that's partly because I set a specific assignment and got back such interesting responses from the students that I became really excited to actually make that the subject. And so for me, the object is a slideshow that somebody called Tristram Harris, who used to work at Google and then eventually became Google's chief ethicist, and then eventually quit Google to start what's called the Center for Humane Technology. And he had made this really kind of ugly slideshow to his colleagues, which basically said there's something about the way that products are being designed which is fundamentally broken. And that we need to think a little bit about how you start to design tech products so that people are allowed to exit them, as opposed to forcing people to stay on devices for longer and longer and longer. And it's a really funny slideshow. And at the end, it has this question where it asks developers to propose certain changes in the way that tech is designed. And I'd thrown that open to my students. And I got back some great responses, which also is interesting for me because as a 37-year-old person who doesn't actually use my phone that much, at this point, I have a fairly healthy relationship, I would like to say, with technology. But so many of my friends, so many of the people I know who are younger, so many of my students at Ashoka have themselves talked about having difficult relationships with their devices, unhealthy relationships with their devices. And so for me, I want to know what that means because I don't actually know myself. And so the idea that in this assignment, I'll get to talk to some people who are in school now, whose maybe relationships with tech is just emerging, who know a lot more actually about some things than I do. And the idea that, okay, then I get to hear from a group of people, how do you interact with this stuff? How do you think this affects you? Or, what changes do you have? So for me, that's genuinely the bit that I'm excited about the most, that specific segment, and reading student responses to that segment. In terms of what they can learn practically at the end of it, I think that the course is structured in such a way that you are going to practice 3 basic habits of, asking questions, expressing doubt, expressing skepticism. Was that really the case? Can this really be true? Are you sure? This kind of thing. And making decisions. And again, this is not, I know it's not that practical, but the idea that by the end of it, you will do a project where you actually get to do all of these three things in relation to something in your life. And the promise there is that if you can do this and if we can show you how to do this in a contained manner, perhaps you can do this again one day for something that matters even more to you than this. It might not be that relationship with tech is everybody's first priority. But if you just practice how to do this, how to ask this question, how to make sure it's a good question, are you asking it of the right people? Are you asking the person who's actually in power this question where it actually can make a difference? Or are you asking somebody who, like you, is in some way a victim of this larger setup? So if you can practice this, then that's a useful deliverable. And at the very least, you get to look at your own use of things like Zomato or Uber or the kinds of things that are just surrounding us and just figuring out, is there one way in which you can think about the way in which this thing structures your life, or your laptop or your parents' laptop structures your life? And is there one question that if you plant in your head now, that may actually give you some clarity on what it is that you want to do? Imagine you started asking, is the fare that I'm paying my Uber driver actually fair? Is it a good price? And imagine you could just learn to ask that one question. And then for the rest of your life, you trained yourself to always ask, even if I'm getting a cheaper price, is this a good price? Is this a good price for me to pay? That's useful. And it can clarify your priorities uh, as you go on. Even when you're sitting and grappling with, like, do I want to study physics? Do I want to study biology? Do I want to study history? The idea that the questions you ask will in some way predict what you eventually want to study, because all disciplines have a certain way of asking questions. And all disciplines come with a certain set of questions that you should be asking if you're a person who's studying physics. An entrepreneur will ask a very different question to an economist, to a moral philosopher. So the idea that by practicing in a very contained setting how to ask questions about your technology, you could actually get some sense of what questions are interesting to you, which can help you figure out a discipline. You could ask a question about, and you could express doubt in a way that you can apply outside of your academic work into your workplace. You could make decisions or think about how to make decisions in a way that you can embed in small ways in your everyday life. So whether it's university, what comes after university, or your everyday life, doing a small contained project can help you in all three, I think.
Aditi, you're on.
Yeah, and right. And I think, when you were talking about technology, actually, I went back to thinking something I personally experienced, where I realized that I was eating too much sugar, because of my access to having Zomato and Swiggy on my phone and, ordering. And that actually even raised the expenses that I was, spending in a month. And the outcome of it that is that I had to push myself to actually go on a no sugar diet. So I think, we don't think about these things consciously, but how they actually maneuver our lives is something which will be very interesting to uncover in the course during summer.
Yeah, I hope
And I
so.
think, yeah, and I think, Professor Bernard, I'll move to your course now, which is research writing from inquiry to impact. And I think inquiry and impact being the keywords here. If you could talk about number one, what excites you the most to teach this course, and the second part being what is the core outcome that students will achieve at the end of the course.
Right. Thank you. But I just want to kind of visit a thought that Professor Bhattacharjee was talking about. What is a good price to pay for a service or for a product? I mean, it's such a powerful question because we think that what's given to us is all preset and we just don't have to think, or we just have to do what is said to us. I think it was during the COVID time when all the people who were supplying your daily provisions, vegetables and stuff, they all had to leave the city. That some of these things, I was living in Mumbai at that time. I got stuck in Mumbai for the first COVID season, and I started recognizing and kind of reflecting on this. When you walk into a mall, you if you like something, you don't even check the price too much. You just pay what's on the label. You just pay what's there. But when you go the same person goes to the fruit market or to buy vegetables, and we are, or with the autowala, we are literally bargaining. And often you've paid 3,000 rupees for a dress or a pair of shoes, and you're buying carrots for 40 rupees and you want to get them for 25. So how do you actually decide? And I think that's I'd written something there. Why don't you always, instead of bargaining down, why don't you start tipping up, particularly those who are in the informal markets? So coming back to research again, and I see the correlation between thinking and thinking hard and reflecting. Um, when what kind of motivates me to do this course again and again is, particularly for someone even from school, is this word research is always put up, shrouded, is put on an ivory pedestal, and is said that only career researchers do it, or PhDs, and the word has been made inaccessible to most of us, and yet all of us, we just use another word, we call it Googling, but that's what we do. We are practicing research all the time. And I think another way of looking at it is that when you're younger, when you're in school, and particularly, in our context, many of our decisions that affect our lives are taken by parents and by the larger family. Nothing right or wrong about it. But often what happens is that's also right because we have never been trained to look at options, look at pros and cons, and come up with something which is more informed. And we expect the so-called adults to do it. So I look at research as a very empowering set of skills that one could have. It's if we learn how to do research, then we do learn how to actually work with information at all fronts, life and professionally. So there are kind of four aspects to research. Number one, the ability to look at everyday problems, normal problems that we experience, and from there, look at possibilities where you could make some contribution, where you could develop your voice on it. So the ability to reflect on ordinary problems, that's the first thing I would say. So research for me is very ontological. In a sense, it's very much related to your being in the world, what matters to you. It's not what your supervisor, your teacher tells you. It's about you and what you are sincerely pursuing with your curiosity and your questioning. The second part would be that once you kind of played around with that, identified a theme, etc., a problem, how do you kind of shift from that to what I call as the world of texts? There's nothing really new under the sun. Much of these are already located. A lot of the questions you begin with have already been answered. So now you don't read so-called research papers, those boring papers, just trying to hunt for some information. No, but you actually look at them as a way of resonating with the problems that you had. So there are some steps that you take, you identify the discourse, you literally try and find the previous conversations that people who had taken your problem seriously have contributed to. And by reading it, you actually start to get a different understanding, perhaps a deeper, richer understanding of your own problem. Once you have done that sort of a review and you've identified the literature, you've read it, you've understood it. The third big thing I want to say is you're looking for a gap. You're looking for a place where you could say something. You're looking for, you're trying to squeeze yourself in an ongoing conversation. And how to think in the world of text, moving away from this real world. How do you immerse yourself in that conversation and literally looking for a gap where you could say something? I think if we pick that up, we have learned how to do a PhD, and I believe 16, 17, 18-year-olds can easily pick this up, easily pick it up. And we not gone are those days when you have young people shining forth with great gusto and with great passion about things that matter to them. It all depends on how you do it. You learn those skills, And finally, of course, the fourth thing is, now how do you write it out? How do you write it out? I realize it's 5 weeks. You can't learn every bit. We really can't go through data collection, data analysis. I mean, that's another level. But at least what we can do is we can review literature. We could find gaps. We can create hypotheses, and we can say something which others haven't said so.
Sure. Thanks so much for sharing this answer. And uh, I think what one of the takeaways that I'm taking from this is that it is making research more accessible for students who are interested in it, who also find it as this, overwhelming thing that a PhD student can do. No, if even if you are in high school, you can do it. It's a process that you can follow again and again and again in no matter what you do, what kind of work or what kind of study you do. And it's something that it's basically actually also giving you a voice,
Yeah.
giving each student a voice to share their voice to the world. So I think now, thanks so much for this lovely fireside chat. I hope we were able to cover a lot of aspects that even our attendees wanted to know. I will open it up to questions for our attendees now. In case you have any questions, please do let us know. We have all the information shared in chat as well in terms of enrolling for the courses. But if you have any questions, please do share. I'll pause here. Otherwise, we take that towards the end. Okay. In the meantime, I'll be talking a little bit about our program. Um, so Ashoka Horizons Achievers Program is an online program of 18 hours spread over weekends from 17th May to 14th June this summer. It'll be Saturdays and Sundays, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Anyone looking for that specific information. Very quickly, just want to talk about some really, really special features about this program and what will actually enable you to choose this program, I think, over the others. Number one, we will be focusing on small cohorts. So it will be around 25 students, not more than that. And it'll have a very immersive learning experience for each student where they get to collaborate with each other, where they get to work with mentors, they get to do hands-on practice. It'll be You have already met our lovely faculty for research writing and critical thinking, and we have such leading global faculty for all our courses that you can see. Each course has a special capstone project where you actually create something, you actually build something, and you can talk about that project in different forays that you go into. Like, for example, you actually get a research paper, almost a research paper that can be a research script actually of the paper that can have the potential to be published as in the research writing course, and that is your capstone project. And similarly, in critical thinking, you actually work on a project where you decode a tech feature, you decode a tech and analyze that critically, and practice that process. So that's very special in all of our courses that you have a capstone project, and it gives you a tangible outcome in the course that you can take it forward, and you can talk about it in interviews, you can talk about it in your college applications, etc. You can also see some of the high industry standards that we have in terms of course completion and ratings. And one of the special features I would like to highlight is that each course provides the top students for an extended opportunity. So most of the courses have an extended opportunity for students who perform well. In the research writing course, especially, I would like to highlight that students will have the opportunity to get their research papers published by the publication called Springer Nature. So that's a collaboration that we've made, and that's an extended opportunity that students will get. And there are other valuable opportunities in other courses like internships, mentorships, working on research, other research related projects, working on observerships as well. So that's something I want to highlight about the program very quickly. And you can also view our course catalog. We have 15 courses. for 9th to 12th graders. These are macro courses, as I said. So you can also have a look at our course catalog and all the courses that we're offering this summer on website as well. But here's a quick glimpse of it. So thank you so much for joining us today. I think any queries, we've already posted our email ID on the in chat. Please reach out to us. You can also scan the QR code now to apply. And I'll pause here and I see the chat buzzing. Any questions for anybody, please let us know.
Hi, Aditi.
Yes, Ms. Pooja, please go ahead.
Yeah, yes. Okay. I wanted to ask, very new to us. So there are a few questions like what will be the timings and the all the details, what will be the timings on the weekends and how you will be covering the course. Each subject will be given how much time, and by the end of it, will we get certificate or not? And what is the difference between it? Is better to do Horizon? My son is in ninth. So it is better to do Horizon program or YSP program on campus. So the pros and cons. So a little more detailed information would help to take a decision what to do.
So I think Arshi, would you like to take that question?
Sure, sure. Hi, Pooja. So,
Hello.
I'll talk about Horizons. The dates that we are looking at is May 17th to June 14th. It is weekends courses that the students would be learning live from the faculty over the weekends and also working on the capstone project with a designated mentor. So this
Sorry, I didn't understand. Can you just be a little slow? I'm so sorry. What did you say? On the campus, it is an online program, correct?
Horizons is an online program, whereas YSP is a residential program.
Correct.
For some Horizons Achievers program, students would be with us for 5 weekends. That is on
5
Saturday.
weekends.
Yes.
Okay.
It is on Sundays. They would be attending live classes from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. That is 2 hours each. And they would be learning live from a faculty on a Saturday. That is, they would be walk through a concept, and there would be a lot of instructions and dialogic sessions and working on simulations. There would be pre and post reading as well that the students have to do. And on Sundays, they would be working on a capstone project with a mentor. So we have a teaching fellow for each course who would be doing a lot of individual and group activities with the students to actually enable them to walk through different stages of the project itself. So we
Okay,
know
so Saturday, to understand, so there are so many topics, international relations, economics, psychology. So each and every course will be given how much time and how much insight they will be getting about each program. And how is Saturday and Sunday different? So Sunday will be individual mentor one-on-one, and Saturday will be a group program. So how does it work?
So, Pooja, the 15 courses that we're offering in Horizons program is something to choose from. So, the student would be choosing one course to complete over the 5 weekends. So, if they're
Okay,
interested in psychology course, they would be enrolling themselves in the psychology,
understood.
would be doing only psychology, the neurosciences of well-being for the 5 weekends. It is
Okay,
catalog, and it is as per the interest that the students want to pursue for a summer session. So
okay.
intend to run these courses multiple times during the year. That is, say, during the summer cycle, during the that Diwali break or winter session, wherein students have the bandwidth of
Your
uh,
voice is breaking. Arushi, I can't hear
uh,
you.
uh,
Hello?
is that my network?
Hello? Arushi, your voice was breaking. I couldn't hear the last 2 minutes what you were saying.
Perfectly fine. I can repeat myself. But Isha, is it my network?
No, I think your network is fine. I can hear you.
Thanks for
It's
that.
from my side.
It's perfectly fine.
I'm
Yes,
also
it's
sitting in full network.
perfectly fine. It happens. Network can just cause
Okay,
problems.
so sorry. Yeah.
Worries. So I'll just repeat myself. So I think I was talking about that you would be able to do this one course over the 5 weekends, and this is something that we are offering this in summer session. We are planning to do these courses like we have done these courses in the previous 2 cycles as well. One was in winters and one was in summers 24. So the idea is to run these courses multiple times during the year so that when the students have more bandwidth and they are not busy with their exams or some other competitions that they are participating in, they have this bandwidth of doing weekend courses. So we would be floating them multiple times during the year as well. So if a child is really interested, say, in psychology and entrepreneurship, maybe in this cycle they can take up psychology or entrepreneurship, and next cycle they can choose any other. And just to clarify how what your child should be choosing, Pooja, exactly is that it truly depends what their interest is. So whereas Young Scholars program focuses a lot on the discipline and how subjects of that particular discipline come together. Say for instance, if I were to talk about tech data and computer sciences, it will talk to a student with respect to different subjects which come under the realm of tech data and definitely computer sciences. It would be a journey to focus a lot on the skills that are relevant to these fields. It would be an introduction to data sciences, different fields of computer sciences, talking about hardware, softwares, not necessarily focus on just the coding, but then how to look at the lens of computer sciences being used in different fields as well. We would have a lot of sessions on AI in ethics, AI in policy, and how actually computer sciences thinking, computational thinking comes into being. So that is where you explore the discipline as a whole. But say, for instance, your child is really interested in computer sciences as a field, and they have decided that, okay, this is something I want to pursue. And not decided per se, but they are really keen on pursuing computer sciences, say in 11th and 12th or in their university undergrad. Then Horizons is the best choice for you because it will give them an opportunity to dive deeper into a concept. They would be working on a real world case study. They could be designing their AI bot that can play poker. They could be working on a research paper, which is a tangible outcome to actually a problem that they find in the,
Yes, I do. I actually 3:30, I think.
Aditi, you are on, are you saying something? Could you please mute yourself? Thank you. So just to come back to you, Pooja, the decision is really on what the child is experiencing right now. Are they looking for an exposure to different subjects and then take a choice of what they want to pursue? And if they are,
But that is not an option, correct? Because in both the programs, we have to choose only one. So I thought Horizon is like, more or less, you will be telling about all the programs and then the child can decide. Because right now, currently being in ninth, he's not very sure what he wants to pursue. Still is it possible that we do, what is the difference between 5-day program and an intensive 2-week program in YSP?
so I can answer that question as well for you, Pooja. So our certain programs, say our economics, policy and governance, and our entrepreneurship, business and leadership. These are certain programs which are being offered as advanced versions. So in the first week, students would be, so Ashoka University is known for its a lot of interdisciplinarity and bringing liberal arts lens in the fields of, say, sciences, social sciences, computer sciences, psychology, and new emerging fields. So, the first week focuses a lot on talking about all the, disciplines, like what are the skills that the students need to prepare themselves for, what are the different intersections of different fields talking to each other. And in the second week, they would be more focused on economics, policy, and governance, or maybe the a program that they're choosing for. So it is more of,
YS,
yes,
EBL, yeah.
yes. But for the IST program and TDCS, that is innovators in science and tech, and your tech data and computer sciences, they are imagined to be 2 weeks program because there's so much that needs to be covered in these fields. Initially they were only 1 week program and we used to offer it with YSP Foundation, but since we got a lot of feedback from the students and parents that they need more and more hands-on activities for sciences and computer sciences, that is, Ashoka is really known for its labs. We have a maker space that is gaining a lot of popularity because of what experiments that the students can actually perform when they are in lab. So I think, pertaining to the lot of feedback that we received, we have imagined these programs and executing these programs as 2 weeks so that the students get a lot of exposure to be in the labs and do a lot of hands-on activities.
Okay. So, can I just ask what will be the approx strength you get every summer of the students? Because I assume the whole campus will be empty, correct? The students will have holidays, uh, the
So,
students who are studying there. So how many students are we looking at in one course?
Pooja, so the idea is that there is an upper limit to which the strength of each program is. It could be 100 and 150, but the sessions are planned such that the students are, say, attending inspiring speaker sessions wherein we have Sanjeev Chandani or some Nobel laureate, Jack Swag coming in and talking about their experiences. Those are the sessions where all the programs are combined. So then the range becomes, say, a lot of students attending the same session. But when we look at the sessions which are very pertaining to the program, the students are also divided into smaller groups of, say, 20 to 30 students, wherein they are executing an experiment in the groups of 2 and 3. So the cohort size remains like 100 and 150, wherein students then are combined to form larger groups or maybe broken down into smaller groups. It depends on the session that they are part of. And
But in general, just if I want to ask, in a program, how many students will be there and how many students total on the campus?
so,
Because if I'm sending my son for like, 2 weeks program, so I would like that information that how many students on the campus, how many students in one course, and the nitty-gritties that what you are saying, sometimes they attend a lecture all together and sometimes that is okay with me. So that, of course, must have made the program very nicely. But I just want to understand the strength of the students in the campus for this 2-week program.
Pooja, we have approximately in the last cycle, we had 1,500 high school students over the span of 4 weeks.
1,500.
Yes, being
Okay.
part of ISP program. So we had week 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they would come and go depending on the weeks and the programs that they are part of. So in total, we had 1,500 students who were part of ISP program 2024. And I can
2024. And okay.
from we have Ashoka department staff. We have a lot of faculty.
Sorry?
Hello, are you talking to me, Pooja?
Yes, because the voice is breaking again. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
I'm just saying that if you're talking from the perspective of security of a high school ward, I can assure you that we have a lot of Ashoka departments and staff and faculty staying on Ashoka campus. We have the entire high school program, the YSP team staying on campus. So the campus is not empty per se, but it has been imagined in a way wherein we have
Okay.
high school students. We also have
Hello
certain,
again. The net. Huh.
sorry, we also have a lot of UG students who are,
Again, the voice is gone.
Arushi, maybe what we can do
Arushi,
is
so
I
Pooja,
can't hear. I
yeah,
don't know.
so
I'm
just
sitting in
to
full
come in,
network.
just to come in, Pooja, maybe what we can do is you can
My
drop us our
internet
email
connection.
ID. Can you please drop us your email ID maybe in chat,
I,
and we'll
2 days
reach
back
out
in
to
info,
you
I had
and
dropped a mail.
we'll
Yes, that will be better. Okay, in info, I had dropped a mail, and right now, currently, I have dropped a mail on sent where is Horizon.
yeah,
So what
sure.
is your email? Can you give us your email?
Yeah, I've sent on Horizon and info both.
Sure,
Yes.
sure. We'll
So let's just check. Yeah, so we will respond to you from the Horizons ID and we'll answer all the queries there, and we can also set up a separate call in case of
Yeah,
any.
even that will be helpful.
Yeah,
So I've given my mail, my phone number also on the mail. So if you want to connect directly with me on call, so even that will work.
great, great. So thank you so much.
Pooja.
Actually, we
Because
are
I
all
was wanted to understand, later on after the studies, they will be staying on the campus, what activities they will be involved in, how will be the day be planned for the whole day and everything.
With all the questions, and we could be responding in detail to what all happens for YSP on campus. Do we have any other question with respect to the courses or Horizons Achievers program as well? If you can post it.
Horizon.
No, we'll talk about this now.
So I was looking at EBL, EBL program. So if
Okay.
you could give me few details on the EBL program.
I would request if you can just ask, write to us on Horizons, and meanwhile we can also let other attendees who are part of this webinar if they have any more questions, or you can write us to on the chat or Q&A, and more than happy to take questions right now.
Okay, yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So if no attendees have the question, I think we can close the webinar now, Arushi.
Yeah, just one last call. Like, do we have any other questions with respect to faculties or the courses or Horizons Achievers program, or maybe young scholars? You can write to us at Horizons, or maybe you can post your questions on the chat. We'll pause for 2 minutes, and we would be reverting to you over the email. You have your email IDs. We'll just pause for a minute. Meanwhile, just thanking everyone who have been part of this webinar. Thank you for taking out time on a Sunday afternoon. It was really lovely interacting with the faculty and also understanding where they're coming from and the skills that the students, the high school students, really need to focus on in a VUCA world. So yeah, we also have upcoming webinar for Horizons, wherein we would be clearing all the doubts that the students or the parents would have with respect to the application or the courses that they should choose. So our team has already posted the link on the chat. If you can also register if you have any doubts or any questions. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Have a good weekend. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.